Hi, my name is Lauren Blacksher,
And I'm Darian Marsh.
and this is our presentation on the Shang Dynasty in northern China. Our pages were pages 182 through 185. So, the Shang Dynasty is thought to be the foundation of all things Chinese, although it was one of dozens of other city states. It is considered to be like where the Chinese language began, and just a lot of other very important things. So it was located in the lower regions of the Hanghe, but was thought to have territory as far as the Yangtze River. So although the lines for that are very blurry and they weren't totally sure, like where it starts and where it ends, that is how far it is thought to be, although it varied throughout the years depending on who ruled. So, one of the most interesting things about the Shang dynasty is the writing. So, the Egyptians invented the hieroglyphics, but the Shang dynasty invented their own form of writing called oracle bone inscriptions. So, basically, they would take bones or turtle shells and they would carve symbols into them. So, it was logographic, which means symbols represented words. Had about 4,500 characters, which is a lot to remember. We've only been able to decipher about one third of them, but the ones that we have found showed that a lot of the writings were based on religion and their offerings to the gods. The first clear cut writing was found around 1200 BCE to 1050 BCE, although there were like clay pots and pottery found that did show that they could have potentially had um like meaningful writing before that. So their society and their agriculture was very stratified. It had a very strong hierarchy, and the top class people typically were ruthless to the lower class people, whether that was through the food supply or only they were the ones who used bronze, which we'll talk about in a second. But basically, it was just very stratified. They didn't use very much like irrigation. Instead, they had plantation systems run by gangs of laborers. They grew stuff such as millet, which is a small seeded grass, wheat, which was the preferred food for the higher class, and then they had barley, peas, and beans, as well as showed advanced livestock, raising such as pigs, sheep, horse, and oxen. So the Shang bronze was one of the foundational parts of the Shang dynasty. It's indicated through some of the writings that we've been able to decipher that they were in constant warfare. So within this warfare, they used bronze weapons as well as chariots, and these were only for the elite people. So typically, lower class used wood or clay. Even if that's for like religious offerings, the upper class always had bronze. Again, bronze was central to Shang life, and the officials organized almost every step of the creation and use of bronze. Chariots were a big thing, and often the high class would want to be buried with chariots for the afterlife. So the tomb of Fu Hao was a great demonstration of this stratified life because it kind of shows their reverence. So it was actually she was a female who was a king's consort and a military general, which was very unusual. But she's mentioned in about 180 bone oracles. Her tomb alone demonstrates the social stratification, the reverence, and the long distance trade, as well as some of the violence found even within the human sacrifices offered in her tomb. She had tons of stuff, and interestingly enough, her tomb was the only one never looted. So of course there was like her skeleton and then the 16 other sacrifices, along with we see like 468 pieces of Shang bronze, as well as pottery and stone objects and lots of other stuff that kind of shows the advancement as well as the of that culture as well as the reverence they had for the high class.
So this leads us to talk about the ancestors and religion. The elite man and the Shang king, they honored a god known as D, whilst the commoners, they had to honor lesser gods. But due to the king's like self-proclaimed divine powers, they were able to ask favors of the god D. It was believed that the ancestors they lived in heaven and they looked down on their descendants and they were interested in it. So ritual sacrifices and offerings decided one's wealth. Even commoners believed that paying taxes was like paying taxes to their ancestors. And now for the family life, in order for women to join their husband's lineage, they had to leave their own homes and their birth lineage behind. Elite men could have up to several wives, and the Shang king had to marry into important lineages, where the wives had political roles in court. And so for long distance trades, they used chariots and they used carries that allowed them for the trade for long distances. Before even the Silk Road was established, it was believed that they used a carry road, then it was used for trade. That road, it connected Southwest Asia and India to, excuse me, to China. India will receive rice from China and China will receive wheat. But due to the warmer and wetter lands, it allowed for better growth, and it was easier for them to trade because of that. And so the Shang Empire, it was overrun by their enemies because their cruelty, how cruel they was to their peasants, which basically it staged a rebellion against the Shang. The peasants staged a rebellion against the Shangs, and it left them wide open to attack from their enemies. Due to this forced Shang, they forced them to move, and they had to build states in a new area now known as China. And in China, they built a major city known as San Dui. It's a fortified city. It it featured a lot of things such as bronze work, and that opened up more trade links for us to places like Southwest Asia. And this concludes our presentation on the Shang Dynasty.